Welcome to Crypto Weekly. This is the first video in the series, basically covering a summary of the events, highlights really, of the events in the crypto space that's taken place in the week in 15 minutes or less, so for people that don't have time. Okay, in today's episode, we'll look at markets, basically the outlook, what it looks like, activity happening in the markets. We're going to look at the Ether wallet hacks, what happened to MyEther wallet hack that happened and people lost funds. We're going to look at tracking blood diamonds. Okay, that's IBM getting involved in with some companies there to try and bring some accountability and tracking to those diamonds that are being used in jewelry. Binance outpaces Deutsche Bank in profits. Ripple class action lawsuit. We've got Richard Branson warning of some scams that are happening, basically scams that are happening out there that are leveraging his identity, his name, basically. And then we've got Telegram that cancelled the slated public ICO because they've raised enough funds. Okay, and yeah, just basically get into the detail. So you can see this week the markets are slightly up at $467 billion. Okay. The order of the top 10 hasn't really changed a lot in a very long time. So the currencies of the top 10 have been pretty steady and stable. Bitcoin still about just over $100 shy of making 10,000. I think that's another sort of important milestone if Bitcoin reaches $10,000 again to get there. Okay, Ethereum has gone up 2% in the last 24 hours. Okay. Bitcoin Cash, double digits growth there, 10% since yesterday, and a few of red, but the gains have been significantly within range, right? Between really -5 to +12. Okay, we still have some outliers, so if we can actually try and see which have been some of the top gainers. Okay, you look, we've got coins like Polymath, CyberMiles, PundiX, Elastos, and all of these actually in double-digit growth. And the biggest losers of the week, okay, we're looking at Bitcoin Private, which has lost 13%. We've got Gifter, Wax, Dragon Chain, okay, but the losses haven't been really huge, as you can see, actually single digits for the most part. Okay. But that's pretty much what's happening in the markets at the moment. And then coming back to the main news article, so we've seen this week hackers emptied Ethereum wallets by breaking the basic infrastructure of the internet. So without getting too technical on this, but basically hackers actually, so it was not the MyEther wallet actually that was hacked, but people actually, the hackers managed to affect basically the internet routing, which is basically how traffic gets from a user when you're requesting information where to find some of these websites, and the internet infrastructure that handles that process was pretty much influenced and used to redirect users to say, you know, instead of the regular myetherwallet.com, the myetherwallet.com, you can go and find out from these other servers that are based in Russia. So it was basically a redirection and a two-step type of attack in that place. But they lost, according to The Verge, $13,000 in the first 2 hours. But then when they tracked to where those funds were moved to, actually about $17 million worth in Ethereum. So this kind of shows that these people have been at it. This is probably would not be the first time, and this is one of the biggest hacks, I think, that sort of targeted MyEther wallet. So one thing I will say, what you need to be careful of is when you're visiting websites. Usually you'll find that you'll find a prompt that comes on top of your web browser, myetherwallet.com. You can see it's got a cross and it says this root certificate is not trusted. So each time you see this, when you're dealing with any website, really, I wouldn't put in private or personal information in that particular website, because this just means it's not verified. So it could be forged. It could be just a badly set up maybe website, which is a valid website. But for the most part, if you're dealing with financial aspects, putting money, logging in, and putting in your passwords, etc., etc., once you see this warning, most of the web browsers now actually will warn you. I would recommend you then to just to just stay away from this particular website. Okay, and basically the next the next news item is IBM tackling black diamonds with blockchain. And again, the idea here is, this is according to Bloomberg, obviously the IBM and a group of 4 gold and diamond industry companies and an independent lab basically developing a blockchain to try and trace the source of this finished jewelry, right? Where the diamonds are actually coming from. Basically, it's called the Trust Chain Initiative, which will run on IBM's technology. So IBM again is trying to drive this blockchain concept. They've been involved in this space for a while, and they're trying to involve other companies as well in industries to try to see how they can actually leverage their technology and infrastructure and technical expertise, basically, to formulate projects that will bring, like that will bring solutions into this particular space using blockchain technologies. Okay, so the Trust Chain is the latest effort by the jewelry industry to use blockchain, a digital ledger that's immutable, to prove consumers their purchases don't include blood diamonds. So it's like an asset tracking, basically. How technically that's going to work, we'll just have to wait and see. But there are already actually existing projects that are available in crypto space. Actually, one of the biggest one, actually, it's called VeChain. They've launched a blockchain network, which is actually that PwC, which is Pricewaterhouse, which is one of the big 4 in China that have invested in this particular startup. So VeChain actually has, they already actually have valid tokens that are already trading on the network, that you can actually go and buy some of these tokens. And basically, these are kind of used as well as tokens, which means they'll use those particular tokens to purchase, to basically, to be able to utilize basically the network, which means PwC kind of own a bit of these tokens as well. And basically, so IBM is launching this now, and they're actually, will be focusing on the enterprise, and they'll be competing with some of these tokens that already exist, that have been created again. So we'll talk in future, in the future news. I'm sure you hear a lot of news that is going on between the relationship between PwC, which is sponsoring, and we've bought in, basically becoming a holder of the VEN chain. The VEN is the actual token that's traded on the network. And moving on to the Binance outpacing Deutsche Bank. Overall, this is one of those kind of reminds me of rags to riches, really, when you kind of look at the story of Binance, how Binance has started, but in a very short of time. Okay, this is very interesting. So Deutsche Bank's net profit for this quarter, not surprisingly, for this quarter, and Binance, one of the world's largest crypto exchanges, has surpassed the German financial institution. So while the Deutsche Bank raised a massive $146 million, this is profits, right, over the course of the Q1, so the first 3 months of the year, Binance has brought in excess of 200 million. So they've beat Deutsche Bank. Okay, now what's more astounding, impressive, is that the Deutsche Bank currently, it's over 100 years old, and Binance is, I think, just under a year old. 97,000 employees with Deutsche Bank and 200 people with Binance. So I think this is just one of those exciting news when you hear, and it just shows you the possibility, the opportunities that lie in this crypto space. And I think Binance is on their way to become one of the historical companies and the leading companies in this space. And next news item, so we've got a disgruntled investor in Ripple who hits out, basically actually has launched a class action lawsuit against the founders of Ripple. He's basically saying he bought some tokens at a specific price in January. Prices were at an all-time high for the most part. I think $2.30 when he bought this particular coin, and prices depleted. He sold, and he basically had a net loss, I think, for 30% or thereabout. And so he's basically now saying, again, because if you understand, Ripple does not work like most coins where there's a proof of work or proof of stake, which is on the network, basically where you can actually mine and verify these transactions and generate the new cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Ripple actually gets released and specific time frames. The Ripple actually releases a few of these Ripple tokens onto the network. And basically this guy is saying, well, that's like an ICO actually, where people, you pay in money to get a token. And this is not ending, it's never ending, because they'll keep on releasing some of these funds. So this should be treated as a security. And that's the basis, actually the basis of this lawsuit. They basically say this is a never-ending ICO, so it contravenes against the California state and the US basically securities law. And so yeah, we'll wait to see what happens, and we'll be following closely to see what happens in the particular lawsuit. So beware of fake Bitcoin scams. So again, one of the prominent businessmen in the world, I think we all know Richard Branson, and he's basically just had to write a blog post, right, mentioning basically the growing challenges of fake stories. I've come across this personally. You know, we're browsing the internet and you see news headlines like, you know, so many thousands of British people have left their jobs and they've started trading or have gone into this cryptocurrency. And, you know, they'll put maybe a quote by Richard Branson, including in that. And some of these fake pages and misleading ads actually are very, very well done, actually. And they will look legitimate and look like they're coming from legitimate sources. So one of the things, some of them actually imitating and copying CNN, the logos. So again, like I mentioned earlier, just always verify the website in the URL of any page that you're viewing and you're reading, just to make sure it's accurate, and that it states that it's a secure website as well, just to make sure you don't get duped. So he comments, you know, like it's not just himself as well, the likes of Bill Gates as well. People, I think, have just been using their names as a way of luring new investors. Okay, and I think he actually gives quite a good advice here. At the end where he says, remains vigilant and make sure when you're clicking through the websites are actually legitimate, and the website addresses and the social media accounts of those particular people, you know, that they check out. You know, the Facebook, the Twitters, they've introduced facilities to say a verified account. So if an account is verified, then, you know, it's a legitimate. It's the real Richard Branson, basically. That's communicating and publishing information. And then the last news we have this week. Excuse me there. Okay, so the Telegram, you know, we all know the popular messaging app, very well known for its sort of end-to-end privacy, and I think it's become very popular and dominant in the crypto sphere. They had planned to launch an ICO, which basically they're the public ICO that they had planned to raise funds to build their they call it TON network, right? And what basically happened is they had private sales, which means basically it's private funders that come into the program, and they actually managed to raise $1.7 billion US dollars, $1.7 billion US dollars, and they basically ended up saying, look, I think we've raised enough funds that we need from private funds, and then there's no need for us to according to the Wall Street Journal, there's no need for us to carry on and building this Telegram open network using public coin offerings. So again, we'll wait to see what happens, and yeah, that's it for this week, guys. Until the next video, check you out next week. Cheers for now.